Hey guys, I'm Dunmere. I'm a top 100 tank player, and in this video I'm going to talk about how you can have a very particular mentality that will let you carry all the games you're in as a tank in Overwatch 2. So, we're going to go through what the mentality is, and then talk about how it manifests in my gameplay, and tell you guys how you can use it properly. So, basically what this mentality is that you want to think about everything in the game being yours. And when I say everything, I mean everything that is on your team, right? So your teammates cooldowns, your teammates' lives, the space around your teammates, all that area. And then you also want to think about the same thing with the enemy, right? The space that they're in, their lives, everything. So you basically want to have a mentality that for your teammates, you want to be guiding them and steering them towards the way that you want to go as the tank player, as the one who is basically steering them, essentially. Now, of course, you don't want to go too crazy where you just boss them around and like yelling at them or something like that, right? But you do want to be guiding them with their cooldowns that they're using, like whether they're using ultimates to assist you, calling their ultimates, that sort of stuff. And on the opposite side of things, for the enemies, you just want to have a mentality that everything that they have is already yours, essentially, right? So like their lives, their cooldowns, the space particularly that they're in, but you don't give them any respect and you push it to the limit as much as you can. So, as you can see in this gameplay clip here, we're kind of just mincing them apart, right? And so this fight's obviously already over, but for the next fight, as you can see, I'm continually pushing forward, right? If I have the mentality like back here that I'm, you know, if I have this sort of mentality that I'm just playing the game, I'm just a tank, I just make space for my enemies, you don't have this sort of thing where you just want to push up and just force it, right? Every second I'm out here forcing my positioning against the enemy, or I'm just deciding like to make them push me out of an area, is really what the whole thing about positioning is times where I'm taking more resources from them, I'm taking more ult charge for myself, and will consistently let you just get extra kills like I did against that Genji, right? Now you do have to be kind of careful about it, but having this sort of mentality lets you really stretch the limits, right? Like I'm pushing super aggressively into the enemy, I forced out their Sojourner, now their Winston, and this place is mine, right? Now, of course, that doesn't guarantee you're gonna win, right? Because then they have like a Genji sneaking behind and killing my Widowmaker, and this whole gameplay is pretty scrappy. It does get kind of difficult, but that's the kind of mentality you want, right? So when you're going into sort of an aggressive position, your mentality is like, you're standing in the space that's already mine, I'm gonna go take it from you. Now, obviously you don't want to let this be like the kind of thing where it gets you acting stupid, right? But it's a sort of mentality where it's like, you have what I want, I'm gonna go do what it takes to get it from you, essentially. And the more aggressive you play, the more aggro, the less you respect the enemy team, the more likely that is to occur. So as you can see here, even though I'm just like rolling around in the back line, I'm basically just, you know, fragging out, right? And so what you're going to see here is like my mentality versus like another tank's mentality, to show it from you in like a third person perspective, is when we're up here and I'm primaling and I'm doing my thing and I kill the Kiriko and whatever, it's basically just like right about right here. It's just like I always want more, right? Because it's like, that's my space, my stuff that I want from you. And so any sort of area on the map, and this is like the most important section of all of this video basically, is that any area on the map that I've taken, that's mine, and I'm not going to give it back to you without a fight, right? And so yeah, they do end up pushing me and things get a little bit awkward here for me, and they use like 4 ults to push us out. But this is the difference between like playing with this sort of mentality and playing without it, right? Like I said, it's not always going to guarantee 100% success, but what it will do is what happened here, right? So because instead of backing up with my ultimate, I choose to stay in this area, play in this corner or something like that, it forces the Winston to use this bubble to get me out. We're brawling. He would have had pretty decent dives regardless, right? So instead, if I backed up here and I'd run away and I just dove out like right here, been like, oh, I'm half health, I don't have my cooldown available, time to get out. The Winston could have just walked up here for free, dove onto these 3, and potentially gone to pick and potentially won the fight. But because I didn't let him do that, I forced him to use a Sojourn ult, a Nano Blade, and a Primal by doing that. And so it's basically just like this consistent mentality of like pushing the limits, essentially, like pushing it as far as you can possibly go without feeding. Now, of course, you do need to kind of do a lot of feeding at some point to figure this sort of stuff out, and you will die a lot, but the more you get to this level, the higher you can realize what you can and can't do, right? And then you push what you can do to the absolute max, and that's how you win games. So here we sneak onto them. You know, this is all standard. I split their team in half with my bubble, which is, as a side note, a really good thing to do, just because it makes it so they can't heal themselves. And then immediately right back in. And so that's part of what this also kind of is. It's just like always wanting to go back in as much as possible, where it's like, hey bro, you're standing in my area, give it to me, you know. And so you're trying to force them out of it, and then they punch you in the face and they make you go away, and you're like, oh, okay. But you're like, oh, I'm full health again, time to go right back in, right? And my mentality right here is I want to chase them into the spawn. Like, I want to go as fast as I can and hard as I can. Now, you do have to temper your limitations a bit, because you understand, like, yeah, you can't always just be going 100%, right? The enemy will, your teammates won't always follow you up unless you're like playing in like a 6-stack or 5-stack, sorry, right? But it's the mentality that will let you just stretch your limits. And especially if you're good with Primal or are good with whatever tank you're playing, you can continue to do this. Like, it gets a little bit, it obviously you have to be like basing it off of what you're playing, right? Like if I'm playing like something like Roadhog, for example, I have to be more cautious about continually pressing W because I don't have the ability to run away, right? And the reason you kind of can do this on Winston is because it does become a lot more easier with the ability to jump out, right? But the fundamentals are still the same. You would just be pushing up to try and look for a hook constantly, that sort of thing. And with Reinhardt, you can play very similarly and then use your ability to get out. But again, like here we'll show you kind of what this sort of mentality looks like. So even though it's like a 3v3 or 3v4 here, I still want to go in. Now, unfortunately, right here, my Kiriko ends up getting killed, which is tragic because I've already committed my jump, right? But assuming my Kiriko isn't trying to duel against a Woodham or a Sojourn, right? I'm able to get support from her. She probably hits me with her little lamp right here, and we're able to, like, sorry, I thought my Kiriko was alive. I thought I was crazy for a second. But anyway, sorry, my Kiriko will be alive supporting me, and my DPS will be here burning them down. And it's just like constantly going as much as possible, forcing the enemy to make you lose, essentially, rather than you letting them make you lose, right? So it's always pushing the limits, always trying to go back in as much as possible and continue your uptime as much as you can. Now, that doesn't mean to just run in or anything and just feed your brains out or anything. Like, don't be like inting in your games and be like, oh, well, Dunmere just said to go in, so I went 1v5, right? No. Now, there are times where maybe you can get a little bit of extra ult charge and get a little bit of cooldowns out of them 1v5 before your team gets back. Possible. On something like Winston, that is possible. But don't just go inting your brains out and then blaming me. Now, of course, like I've been saying, you do have to observe what's going on in the situation. You do have to realize that, like, not every time can you just be always pressing W, right? But it's the same sort of thing, like, oh, okay, well, whatever they're trying to do, you just do it more aggressively and try and force them to stop that. Now, we did end up getting full held there, which is tragic. Was a little bit upset in this game that was happening to us. But it's the same sort of thing with this. Even at the start of the match, I do mess up the timing because the spawn doors are weird, but here I'm just like trying to get a little bit of extra cooldowns out of them. Well, not cooldowns, a little bit of ult charge. It's like, oh, you're gonna walk out of your spawn? Well, I'm gonna shoot you in the face with a zap, right? Just to get that much more, to have that much more of my ult charge, that sort of thing. And of course, when you're playing on defense, things get even more extreme like this because you have the ability to choose where you fight them. And so, for example, we could take a fight like all the way in their spawn. Like, we could choose to take a fight like all the way where they're standing and then duel them and then jump back out. Now, I'm not going to go do that in like ranked all the time just because my teammates won't support me. People think I'm crazy. But like in a team environment, you 100% can do that. And so you want to have like as much of that mentality as you can, while also understanding that your teammates aren't going to always do that with you, you know? And then apparently sometimes your teammates just die anyway, regardless of what's going on around you. But with your life too, this mentality is very valuable. Even though I'm only like 70 health, just not making it easy for them to kill me. You know, say my team pushed back and got a pick to trade. My character didn't dash onto me or something like that. Maybe the Sojourn's low, walks out, and it's just because I make them take that much more, so they had to have a Sojourn and like a Winston chase me. Just always valuing your resources as much as possible because they are your resources already, and disrespecting what the enemy has and wanting to take it from them. It's like this. They're capping the point. I'm over here just trying to get as much as I can from them, you know? And again, you will get caught out by it sometimes. And like, we kind of do end up getting caught up by this. That's mainly because we weren't standing on the high ground and we chose to just stand on the low ground. But here you're gonna see something pretty sick. I do like this part. You know? Again, they push into your area. If you can do something about it, you go do something about it. So even though it's 1v5, just go kill a Sojourn real quick. 1v4 or whatever it was. Then kill Kiriko. Then keep pressing W. You always want to get as much as you can. And that's really particularly for like tank characters. Tanking is all about effective uptime. So the more you're sitting around able to consistently be trying to like dealing damage to something, the better you're doing as a tank. So this mentality of any space that they have, you don't respect it, you want to take it back like ASAP and consistently just pressure them and force them to be good is how you're going to be doing a lot of this. Because basically what happens in terms of these sort of games, and really any sort of competitive game, is going first in a lot of situations, which is really just, you know, like I'm talking about increasing the uptime, right? Because if you're going 50% faster than them, you're going to be going a lot more. You're going to be going first more often than them. And every time you go first, the enemy has to weather that, and they have to survive you going first before they then have an opportunity to counterattack. So let's just say right here, like I went and dove the Ana, which I'm pretty certain I might do, but if I were to dive on the Ana, the enemy team has to stop her from dying before they're able to then try and dive our team. But again, we let them go first, kind of, and they went with the Nano Blades, so that's why they could do that, but... Even here, even there, I didn't really do it 100%, but I should have walked a little bit forward and just put some zaps into that Genji. And I really should, like something I forgot about to do, because I haven't played this map a whole bunch, but you can play on these high grounds. Like a lot of the new maps, there's really weird stuff they've added, which like none of the other maps had this sort of stuff in the old version of Overwatch, where you can stand like right here, you know? You can stand on top of these and they're such good spots, like they're insanely good. So playing here or here, and you'll be able to extend that more, because instead of having only one contest where I'm standing right now, I would have a contest like on that high ground, and then I can jump back to where I am now, or jump back to this corner. Just an uptime thing. On to the other section though that I was talking about. I have been talking a little bit about like viewing your own team's resources as your own. Now, like I said, obviously you really don't want to be like a jerk about it. And if you do just like yell at people what to do or whatever, flame them for not doing what you say, they're not going to do it, and it's going to make your life less successful. But whenever your Ana has a nano, and there's not like a Genji or whatever, any sort of like active resource like that, just call it, you know? Just tell them like, I want to use this now. I want to use it whatever time, whatever. Call for cooldowns for your enemy or for your teammates. Call for healing, things like that. If you're really trying to get fancy, and something you should be doing is communicating what ultimates your teammates should be using, right? If you understand the game to that level. Even if you don't, you can kind of get some of the simpler things like, hey, let's Nano Blade, you know, here. Let's not do this. Let's use these ults. Let's not use all 5 in this fight, sort of thing. Or like, hey, they have 3 ults, we have 5, let's not use all of them at a time. Now, also sometimes you do end But like I said, you have to feed to find your limits, right? But it's that sort of mentality, because the tank player is the one who is best suited to do all this sort of like high level organization, because the team goes based off of you, because you're the one that's responsible for pushing forward, securing and producing space and maintaining it, and your team basically plays like generally around you. So if you're the one pushing forward, you're the one doing all that sort of stuff, communicating that is going to be really, really, really valuable, right? So even if you're not like using, like even if you have a Genji and you're using like a Nano Blade rather than like a Nano Monkey, just having you there to soften the blow of whatever he has to deal with when he lands, and communicating that you're like going to do that jump can be super, super valuable. You know, to something like, hey Genji, I'll dive with you, right? That is taking ownership of the dive and explaining that whenever he wants to go, you'll try and go in with him, right? So I also hate those lampposts that just block all your stuff. But again, like I said, you always want to be pushing forward. Twice in a row, bro. And always trying to contest as much as possible. Why do these end early? Anyway, well, we won, guys. But that's the sort of mentality you gotta have, right? You just always want to be thinking that you want to be doing the things constantly, always. None of this like, oh, okay, well, the resources aren't perfect, right, on my team. It's a mentality that pushes you into like, okay, well, it's a 3v3. We can probably win it. Let's do it, you know? And like I said, you always have to try and like learn what works and what doesn't work and like measure it down. But this mentality, it just pushes you forward, pushes you to your limits, makes you stretch the enemy's limits before, you know, without them having tested it potentially, that sort of thing. And then lets you have a lot of organization towards your team, having communicated with them. And then particularly with how the space works of like consistently always fighting for things. Like for example, if I was to do this map 100% properly, I would do something like play up on the high ground here. And when the enemy comes down through here or down through here, I drop on them and I contest them. I might not use my bubble yet. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But it depends on where my team is, right? Like if my team's further back here, I do have to understand that they can't see what's over here. So I don't want to use my full bubble yet because I'm not gonna get a lot of value. But I can play here, maybe wait till the enemy walks a little bit forward, drop in their Ana, zap her a little bit, jump back here, play in this corner, and like that's a full extra contest that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, right? So you play that, and then when the enemy starts pushing forward, then you're ready here with your bubble. Or maybe you've already used your bubble and now you just zap them a little bit and then you have your bubble a few seconds into it. And then your team's there and they've already been softened up once, basically. Your team's supporting you, your team's all full health. Then you go for one, you know, and then maybe even like just constantly trying to push it forward and push it forward. Like you can probably get, instead of only one contest here, you're getting 2 guaranteed. And there's lots of sections on maps like even if, for example, like let's just say the cart's like all the way back here, again, instead of playing all the way back here, you can still play up here and you zap the enemies, go back here, play this corner. They have to fight through this corner. They get through this corner, you jump back, right? Then they have to fight you on this high ground. Then you jump all the way back here. Then they have to fight you on this corner, right? On this sort of section of the high ground. And then they push you further back and then you're contesting for this high ground, right? Now, you don't want to be like I said, don't go crazy, guys. Learn what you can do and what you can't do. Your team's probably not going to support you if you play all the way like that, but you can generally get at least like 1 extra level, right? So even if the payload's like all the way back here and they're like already here, you can play at least like on this corner sort of thing. So yeah, and every stretch that they have to push through is an opportunity that they'll lose, right? So right here, if you have your Ana just toss in a nade, you know, like nade right as you drop in, like that's a chance you get a pick, right? And then it's 4v5, then your team wins that fight, probably. Then they do it here. That's another opportunity where they have to like push through you and beat your aggression. Then here, right? So they have to do it like 4 times, even if they're like half chances, 4 times before they even get to the payload, versus playing back here where there's only 1 opportunity. So just, yeah, guys, use this mentality and you'll get a lot of value out of it. If you're looking for some more Overwatch 2 content, then make sure to check out these videos I have right here. Like I said, I'm a top 100 Overwatch player, so I have lots of videos and things to share with you guys.